We picture Los Angeles and we see the silver screen, shimmering pools, and endless sunshine. It's the city where dreams are supposed to come true. But what happens when the dream collapses? What happens to the person when the safety net is gone? In this story, we look past the postcard image and into the eyes of those living in the shadow of Hollywood. We won't just show you the tents and the despair. We'll ask what came before. What was the last dream you remember having for thousands on these streets? That memory is a distant luxury. Join us as we explore not just a crisis of housing, but a crisis of the human spirit. The reality is more personal than you can imagine. Number 1. The human toll of a broken system. As we enter 2025, the raw numbers are staggering. In Los Angeles County, more than 75,000 souls are without a permanent place to call home. Within the city itself, that number is nearly 45,000. Think about that for a moment. That's enough people to fill a Major League Baseball stadium, all sleeping on sidewalks in parks or in the cold sanctuary of a car. It's a population of forgotten neighbors larger than in any other city in America. Let's zoom in on Skid Row, a 4-square-mile area downtown that is now the permanent address for nearly 4,000 of these residents. This place wasn't always a symbol of despair. In the early 1900s, it was a landing spot for workers chasing a better life. What do you think those early dreamers would say if they saw it today? For the people here now, the struggle isn't just for shelter. It's a daily fight for dignity, for a safe place to close their eyes, and for clean running water. So, what broke the promise of this city? First, consider the financial tightrope of living here. To rent a simple one-bedroom apartment, you need around $2,800 every single month. But the median income for renters is less than $50,000 a year. That means many are forced to spend over 60% of their income just on rent. How would your life change if over half your paycheck vanished before you even bought groceries? For anyone earning minimum wage, it's not a tightrope, it's an impossible leap. The pandemic that began in 2020 was a storm that broke many people's foundations. Hundreds of thousands lost their jobs in hospitality and entertainment, the very heart of LA's economy. While some recovered, others were swept away. Without work savings or support, the street became their only option. Do you remember the job that changed your life for the better? Now imagine it disappearing overnight. This is more than an economic issue. It's a profound mental health crisis. Roughly 1/3 of LA's unhoused population carries the invisible weight of a serious mental illness. Imagine trying to manage schizophrenia or severe depression while living in a tent. Access to care is a mirage, and often the only help that arrives wears a badge, not a doctor's coat. And woven through it all is the relentless grip of addiction. For many, a substance becomes the only escape from the pain of the present, creating a cruel cycle where the coping mechanism becomes its own cage. When you walk down San Pedro Street, you see this reality firsthand. Tents become homes, shopping carts become closets holding every last worldly possession. You hear the quiet hum of survival. This isn't just poverty. It's the slow-motion collapse of a social contract happening right next to $5 million condos. Behind every number is a name. Behind every tent is a story of who they were before this. A life, a dream, a person. This is the city of angels, and these are its fallen. Number 2, fentanyl, the silent thief. If homelessness is the wound, fentanyl is the poison seeping into it. Across Los Angeles County, more than 1,400,000 people are wrestling with a substance use disorder. That is a population larger than the entire city of San Diego. And one substance is stealing more futures than any other: fentanyl. This is not just another drug. It's a synthetic opioid roughly 50 times stronger than heroin and up to 100 times more potent than morphine. An amount as small as 2 milligrams, less than like a few grains of salt, is a lethal dose. and it has flooded every corner of the city. In 2015, fentanyl was barely a footnote in overdose statistics. Now deaths have multiplied by nearly 20 times. Last year in Los Angeles County alone, fentanyl claimed over 3,500 lives. That's almost 10 people a day whose stories came to an abrupt, silent end. What fuels this fire? Fentanyl is incredibly cheap to make and dangerously powerful, so it's often mixed into other drugs without the user's knowledge. It's a game of Russian roulette with every purchase. And it's a thief that doesn't discriminate. It takes students, veterans, and parents. One experimental pill, one tainted line of powder, and minutes later a life is extinguished. Who was that person before the drug took hold? Were they a musician, a chef, a student with a favorite subject? The streets of LA are now a stage for this ongoing tragedy. On any given day in Skid Row or Hollywood, you will see people who are not sleeping, but slipping away. Outreach teams race the clock armed with naloxone, trying to reverse the irreversible. Sometimes they win. Too often, they don't. The evidence is everywhere: discarded syringes, empty pill bottles, and the hollowed-out look in people's eyes. This burden crushes our entire community. Hospitals are flooded. Emergency rooms are in a constant state of triage. Detox centers have waiting lists that stretch for months, a delay that can be a death sentence. And here is the hardest truth: fentanyl preys on the vulnerable. When you've lost everything, your home, your job, your support system, the promise of a temporary escape from pain can be too powerful to resist. Homelessness fuels addiction, and addiction deepens homelessness. It's a downward spiral that ends in a premature grave. This is more than a public health emergency, it's a moral one. Behind every overdose number is a person who was loved, who had a past, and who deserved a future. They were not just their addiction. The city is fighting back with harm reduction, distributing naloxone, which is also known as Narcan, and clean supplies. But these are tools that pause a tragedy, not prevent it. We need more than just a rescue drug. We need a rescue plan for the human soul. Robust mental health care, accessible recovery programs, and a society that addresses the root causes of despair before it's too late. The streets are crying out for help. If we don't answer, the silence that follows will be deafening. Number 3, Skid Row, a museum of forgotten dreams. Let's walk now into the heart of the crisis, Skid Row. But don't think of it as just a place on a map. Think of it as a living archive of broken promises, a place where the American dream comes to die. Its story began in the late 1800s as a rugged corner of a city still finding its identity. It was a place of transition for laborers and soldiers, a temporary stop. But Los Angeles grew up building an empire on movies and technology, and it left this neighborhood behind. Over the decades, Skid Row became a container by design, a 50-block square where the city could sweep its most difficult problems. Today, in 2025, it is home to an estimated 8,000 people, but to call it home feels wrong. What was the sound of your childhood home? Laughter in the kitchen. Music from a radio, here. The soundtrack is the murmur of trauma, the scrape of shopping carts on pavement, and a silence that speaks volumes. The physical conditions are a relentless assault on the senses. Tents are packed so tightly they form their own claustrophobic streets. But look closer than the conditions. Look at the people. You see a man sitting motionless, staring at something only he can see. What world is he in? What memories are playing on a loop in his mind? You see a woman clutching a plastic bag of old photos. Who are the people in those pictures? Do they know she is here? Here, violence is a constant threat, but perhaps the deeper wound is the profound loneliness. Think about the last time someone remembered your birthday. For many, here such a small kindness is a forgotten luxury. Connections to family and friends have dissolved. A person can disappear into the crowd, their story vanishing with them, their name never spoken again. This wasn't an accident. It was the result of decades of choices. When affordable housing was torn down for new developments, this is where the fallout landed. When mental health facilities were closed in the 1980s with no real alternative, their former patients ended up here. Every decision made in a distant high-rise had a direct consequence on these 50 blocks. Just a few miles away, life goes on. People sip $5 coffees, completely unaware that a few blocks south, a human being is fighting to feel human for one more day. Skid Row isn't just a place of hopelessness. It's a place that forces us to ask a terrifying question. Not just, how did this happen, but who were all these people before they became a statistic? And against all odds, a strange, resilient pulse of life remains. But survival is not living, and no one's dream was to simply survive the night on a concrete bed. Number 4 is a key enough: the promise of inside safe. Amidst this landscape of despair, there are attempts to change the narrative. The most prominent is a program called Inside Safe, launched by the city's leadership. Its goal is to direct move people from street encampments into the safety of temporary shelter, usually a motel room. The numbers sound hopeful. As of early 2025, the program has provided a room for over 20,000 individuals. That's 20,000 people with a door that locks a roof that doesn't leak and a bed that isn't a slab of cardboard. For a moment, they can breathe. For a moment, they are safe from the elements and the constant fear of the street. But here is the critical question: is a key to a motel room the same as a key to a new life? The hard reality is that for many, this is a revolving door. They are housed, but they are not healed. Why? Because the room is quiet, but the trauma, the addiction, and the mental illness are loud. What happens when the silence of a room is more deafening than the chaos you left behind? This is where the system reveals its cracks. Support services are the bridge from temporary shelter to a stable life, but that bridge is fragile. According to county data, for every 8 unhoused people who need mental health services, there is only 1 full-time public professional available to help them. This leaves thousands in a waiting room of despair. The same is true for addiction recovery. In the face of the fentanyl crisis, the demand for detox and rehab has exploded. But facilities are understaffed and overwhelmed with wait lists so long that hope can fade before a bed ever opens up. And what about rebuilding a life? It takes more than a resume workshop. It takes legal aid to clear old records, vocational training for new skills, and a guide to navigate the maze of bureaucracy. These resources are scarce, so who fills this immense gap? It's the nonprofit organizations. Groups like PATH, the People Concerned, and St. Joseph Centre are the true first responders. Their staff are the ones on the streets at midnight building trust, offering a meal and connecting people to care. Reports show that over 70% of all community-based homeless services in Los Angeles are powered by these groups, often running on shoestring budgets and sheer determination. They are the duct tape holding a broken system together. This brings us to a larger question. Is our goal to simply manage homelessness by moving people out of public view? Or is it to truly end it by restoring human lives? Real solutions require more than motel rooms. They require a massive investment in permanent housing, comprehensive mental and physical health care, and policies that prevent people from losing their homes in the first place. Progress is being made, but it's like trying to fill an ocean with a teaspoon. For every person who gets a key, another is pushed onto the street. Yet the conversation is shifting. We are moving from asking how to clear the streets to how to heal our people. That in itself is a reason for hope. Number 5, the architecture of kindness. After wading through so much darkness, where can we find the light? The answer isn't in a government press release or a new policy. Hope isn't a program, it's an action. It's a choice. Hope looks like a man who once lived on these streets, now returning every week with a car full of hot soup because he hasn't forgotten the feeling of being cold and hungry. Hope is the retired teacher who spends her afternoons in a tent helping someone learn to read, restoring a piece of the dignity that was stolen from them. Across Los Angeles, this quiet architecture of kindness is being built one person at a time. Remember the name Delilah, a mother who raised 2 children in her car for nearly a year. Her story didn't end there. A small church group didn't just offer her a room, they offered her community. Today, she has her own apartment. Her daughter, who once knew only the backseat of a car as her bedroom, now lives in what she calls Princess Land. What does that small victory feel like? Look at the rooftop garden in East Los Angeles, tended by a formerly homeless youth. They are not just growing vegetables, they are cultivating purpose and feeding their community. Think of the theater troupe made up of people in recovery, turning their pain into art, their shame into a story of second chances. These are not official solutions. They are acts of defiance against despair. They are proof that when systems fail, people don't have to tell you. The most powerful force for change is often a relationship, one person looking another in the eye and saying, "I see you. You are not invisible. You matter." What does hope look like to you? When was the last time a stranger showed you an unexpected kindness? That feeling, that small spark of connection, is the very thing that can begin to heal a life. You don't need a special title or a grant to be a part of this. All you need is a heart that refuses to become numb. Hope finds the cracks in the concrete and grows. It lives in every shared meal, every warm blanket, every moment we choose empathy over judgment. Yes, Los Angeles is a city in crisis, but it is also a city of profound compassion. And perhaps that is the most important story of all, not just the tragedy of what has been lost, but the quiet beauty of what people are trying to build. What we've witnessed on the streets of Los Angeles is more than a local problem. It is a mirror held up to our society, reflecting our deepest fractures and our frayed safety nets. But we must never forget that behind every statistic is a human story. A person who once had a favorite song, a first love, a childhood dream. Someone who, like all of us, yearns for safety, dignity, and a place to belong. This story echoes in cities all over the world, and it asks a fundamental question of us all. What is our responsibility to one another? We can choose to look away, or we can choose to see. We can support local organizations doing the hard work on the ground. We can advocate for policies that treat housing as a human right. But most importantly, we can choose empathy. We can choose to listen. If this story has moved you, please join our community. Your voice matters. Leave a comment below with your own reflections. Subscribe to our channel where we go beyond the headlines to find the human stories that connect us all. Because true discovery isn't just about seeing new places, it's about seeing our world and ourselves in a new light. Thank you for watching. Stay aware, stay compassionate, and until next time, let's try to take care of each other.